Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Both Lewis and Lawrence sent me this story, and it's one that'll raise an eyebrow or two. Sheriff facing 3 DUIs in 2 years, facing multiple calls to resign. This is the sheriff's 3rd DUI charge since 2023. Now, I can tell you that after I printed this story out, he has resigned. So that's a little bit of an update, but Phil Pendleton wrote this version of the story for WKYT. A Kentucky sheriff is facing multiple calls to resign, and he did resign, after recently being arrested on his 3rd DUI charge in less than 2 years. 3rd DUI charge in less than 2 years. So the county sheriff's arrest recently prompted calls for him to resign from everybody all the way up to the governor. And law enforcement officials across Kentucky likewise said that he should probably resign. The Mason County sheriff arrested this sheriff after observing him driving 110 miles per hour with lights and sirens activated without justification. There was no reason for him to be running lights and sirens. Obviously, could smell the odor of alcoholic beverage on his person. Proceeded to do a DUI investigation from there. The arrest citation states that the sheriff registered a blood alcohol content of 0.226, nearly 3 times Kentucky's legal limit of 0.08. Police discovered a bottle of whiskey in his truck during the arrest. When contacted by WKYT, he declined to comment. However, according to the arrest citation, he told officers during his arrest that he was not that drunk. I'm not that drunk. And that's the kind of thing where you look at that and go, okay, how many times have you or your officers, deputies, pulled someone over who's drunk and you've been drinking? I'm not that drunk. Or no, I haven't had much to drink. Or I just had a couple drinks. I had a drink 18 hours ago. And it turns out 0.226. Yeah, you are that drunk at 0.226. This marks his 3rd arrest for DUI since December of 2023. He was previously arrested in December of 23 and again in August of 24. He entered an Elford plea for the previous charge last year, which does not admit guilt but acknowledges sufficient evidence for a conviction. And so it's a tricky little thing, and sometimes it has legal ramifications, but under the terms of his conditional sentence from the Elford plea, he received 90 days in jail with a condition that he not reoffend within 2 years. Oops. And the 90 days in jail is kind of a bad look for the sheriff. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. At the end of the day, he needs to resign because he tarnished the badge. I think I speak on behalf of law enforcement across the state. We police our own. His behavior is not acceptable. And so that's another sheriff that are speaking. The governor also called on him to resign, stating he'd take steps to remove him from office if he didn't. The Kentucky Sheriff's Association director also called for the man's resignation or removal. And it's one of those things, you can resign or you'll be removed. Take your pick. So he faces charges of DUI, reckless driving, wanton endangerment, and official misconduct. He's scheduled for arraignment this upcoming week in Mason District Court. And so a couple of things to understand there. First of all, reckless driving. Regardless of the alcohol, doing 110 with lights and sirens when you shouldn't be doing that, that's bad. And reckless driving, I've mentioned this many times before, so you should know this by now, but reckless driving in most states is a crime. It is not a civil infraction in a typical traffic offense situation. It might look like a ticket in what they hand you, but I know in Michigan, for instance, it's a different color ticket. It's actually got a different color code on it. And it's a misdemeanor, for which you're going to have the whole shooting match of things you get for a crime. You can't just sign the ticket and mail it in with a check. No. Reckless driving is serious. Also, a conviction for reckless driving, in many places, you'll get you 6 points in your license. And 6 points when 12 is a winner. You don't want 6 points. 6 points will get the attention of your insurance company, as will the DUI, by the way. And it really makes me wonder what kind of insurance this guy had on his vehicle. Or if he's driving a company vehicle, I guess, what it cost him to insure his private vehicle. But he has since resigned. But I want to point one thing out, and I'm not familiar with the laws of Kentucky, so I can't opine on those. But I can tell you that many states, such as Michigan, they've escalated the punishments for drunk driving over the years. And in the old days, I remember reading stories about some guy got his 38th drunk driving arrest and appeared in front of the judge and got slapped on the wrist, and they sent him home and said, don't do that again. And a little while later, he got arrested for his 39th drunk driving offense. And people started to get upset by that. And it's unclear why some people could rack up the numbers they did, because the courts could have usually done more. But what they did instead is they said, okay, a first offense drunk driving is going to be a very serious thing. Very serious thing. Potential jail time, points on your license, fines and costs, probation, all kinds of stuff, force you to go to AA, victim impact panels, all kinds of stuff that you're going to have to do, okay, on a first offense. And I've had a lot of people come in and talk to me about this, and they say, Steve, that's a lot of stuff for a first offense. They want to make sure you learn a lesson. You know why? Because the second offense is much worse in terms of what they'll do to you, okay? So think of it as being a curve up. It's exponential. It is not a straight line. The second is not merely a little worse than the first, and the third being a little worse than the second. No, the second ramps it up quite a bit, okay? Quite a bit. Meaning that in most cases, regardless of what happened in your first offense, you're probably going to jail for a period of time on your second offense. And you're getting points, and you're paying fines, and you're paying costs, and you're doing all kinds of other stuff, because remember the probation that they put you in for the first offense? They said they want you to do a bunch of stuff and then not do a bunch of stuff, such as don't drink and drive. And if you do stuff like that later on, they go, okay, it didn't work the first time. We've got to escalate to make it sink in. And I remember when they passed the law, because I was an attorney at the time, when they said, oh, and by the way, your third offense is going to be a crime, a felony crime, a serious crime, not just a misdemeanor. A felony. And in Michigan, I'll let you know right now, on a third offense, drunk driving, number one, it is a felony. So people ask all the time, Steve, what's the difference between a felony and misdemeanor? Generally speaking, felony, serious crime, misdemeanor, lesser crime. Think of it as you spend a year in jail up to, that'd be a misdemeanor. Beyond that, usually they say prison, because you're going to prison for a year. That's a felony. So your serious crimes are felonies. Murder, felony. Shoplifting beneath $100, misdemeanor. Okay? So those first two drunk driving offenses might be misdemeanors. The third, a felony. And a felony in this situation guarantees you 30 days in jail, but you can get 5 years in prison. Five. And so a lot of people my age, a little bit older, are shocked when they hear that and they go, wait, I remember hearing about some guy who had 38 drunk drivings and the judge let him drive home from court that day. Oh, the times they are a-changing. It ain't that way anymore. And so this sheriff who gets arrested 3 times, I'm going to state the obvious for you. He appears to have a drinking problem. Okay, number one. But number two, apparently doesn't learn. Because if you get caught doing something once, think about the whole process. The sobriety test at the roadside, breathalyzer, handcuffs, back of a police car for a guy who normally drives in the front. Jail, mugshot, fingerprints, court. How embarrassing is it to go into court the first time? And a judge is looking down at the sheriff. And I've mentioned before that a lot of times people complain about uneven treatment from courts. They go, courts should treat everyone the same. I tend to agree with that. That's why they've got sentencing guidelines. And the sentencing guideline will say, if you get convicted of this, you should face from this to this, somewhere in here, and fines between here and here. But there are things that should escalate it or make it easier on somebody. Here, it needs to be escalated. And I'm talking about the first offense and the second offense and the third offense. Because if you are a sheriff, not only are you the symbol of law enforcement, but people are going to hear about this. And it will tarnish the image of the department, where people are going to go, oh, the sheriff drinks and drives. And when I got pulled over, they were treating me like I was an idiot at the roadside because I was drunk. And yet, their boss drinks and drives 3 times in 2 years. And as many people will notice, and have probably already typed below, if you've been caught 3 times, the odds are that you may have done it other times as well. Did you get caught every single time? So let me get this straight. In a 2-year period, you decided to drink and drive 3 times, and you got caught all 3 times? I think you're probably a little smarter than that. The question is, how many times did he do it? But more interestingly here is think about how dangerous this was. Because driving 110 miles per hour with lights and sirens activated with no justification, and another police officer picked up on the fact there's something going on here and pulled him over. Luckily, nobody got hurt. And normally, I'm one of these people who luckily nobody got hurt. Okay, but nobody did get hurt. It's different here. It's really different here. Because think of all the lectures delivered by this man during his career and the people who work for him during his career when they pull somebody over for drinking and driving and they get the old, I smell the odor of alcoholic beverages. Have you been drinking tonight? No, not at all. Haven't had a drink. No. When was the last drink you had? A week and a half ago. And they're stumbling around with, touch your nose and their arm is over here, They're all confused. They blow the PBT and it's off the charts. They go to the station breathalyzer, off the charts. Okay, obviously you had a drink more recently. Yeah, I had a 6-pack of beer. And meanwhile, of course, when they inventory the vehicle, they find open intoxicants in there also, And, the police do occasionally lecture people about, we ask you a question, you should tell us the truth, This is your opportunity to tell us the truth. And here's the sheriff, busted for the 3rd time for drinking and driving. And everybody up to the governor was calling for his resignation, and he has now, in fact, resigned, which is the correct thing for him to have done. But you don't factor that in at sentencing. You don't say, well, since you resigned, we're going to go easy on you. No, this has got... The 3rd offense, drunk driving in 2 years, that's a serious crime. It's worse that he was the sheriff, but now that he's not the sheriff, you still don't go easy on him. You go, okay, 3rd offense. And like I said, in Michigan, that's a minimum 30 days in jail, max 5 years in prison. And I wouldn't be surprised if a judge looked at this and said, you know something? As the sheriff, you made the choice to drink and drive. And as the sheriff, with the training that you have, and you also train other people on how to spot impairment and so on, you should know that you're drunk, and yet you chose to get behind the wheel of your car. You chose to drive 110 miles per hour, and you chose to turn on your lights and sirens for no reason, other than just to get people out of your way. As a result of that, I think we need to look at the upper ends of these sentencing guidelines. So that's the story. Everyone wanted him to resign. He has now resigned. And this is the Robertson County Sheriff in Kentucky, arrested for his 3rd DUI charge in less than 2 years. So Phil Pendleton wrote that. Lewis and Lawrence both sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties, 'cause it's a cold one out there today.